suppose.
Oh, I hope so. That's really annoying.
You think about when myocarditis actually started.
Is that you, Tito?
Sorry. Yeah, I'm trying to find
Okay.
our channel.
Let's see. Okay, so we're 86th again.
Oh, wow.
If y'all are watching now, comment down below, the people on the YouTubes. Sorry about that. That's ridiculous. I'm so annoyed by these guys. YouTube is the worst.
Certain things you can't talk about on YouTube.
Yep. You can't talk about dying priests in the Latin Mass, or else they cancel you. Okay, well, nobody's in the chat on YouTube. I apologize to everyone who's not there. Let's see. Craig says, I'm here. Nothing else matters. That's so true, Craig. As long as you're here, I will always do the show. Mimi said, the best hour in Catholic radio. Thank you, Mimi. God bless you. Michelle Vaughn said on Facebook here. Sonia says, who needs YouTube anyways? Yep, so true. Just nuke it. Just move over to Rumble, move over to Odyssey. Those are not great either, but, YouTube is just terrible. Let's see. Lori said, let's play a game. Open the pod bay door, Hal. Ooh, there you go. Michelle Vaughn said, I just got here to the party. Let's see. Mimi, greetings from the heart of Texas Hill Country. Gloria said, good morning. Sonia, good morning. June and Isabel Ybarra, good morning. All for Jesus. Patty says, good morning, CDT fam. Let's see. On the other Facebook page, ES Giselle says, good morning. Rebecca Dominguez says, good morning. Don Paddock, good morning. Nick the Mike on Odyssey. He's a lone survivor on Odyssey. Good morning to you, Ave Maria. Let's see. On Rumble, we got a little bit of a chat going on. He said, Sci-Fi Mike says, good morning. Banji245 says, why do we still call it vaccine? That's true. Why do we still call it a vaccine? AI is not necessary at all. Yes, like I said, AI is completely unnecessary for life. AI is necessary only for the globes, period. Yeah, it can make... I can see good out of AI. It could be very beneficial. I don't trust our modern scientists, our modern computer scientists, our modern coders. I don't trust any of these people. So I am against it. If we lived in a just society, if we lived in a society run by Christendom, if people were still taught Thomistic philosophy in schools, I would be much more comfortable with this. Deacon Ken Dirksen said, if your sister sells the art at live shows, then technically you can buy them somewhere. Well, you can't buy them anywhere right now because there are no live shows coming up anytime soon. She just did a live show a couple weeks ago, and that's going to be the last one for the foreseeable future because I don't know any others. If you know of any live art shows, let me know, and I will let my sister know. Maybe she can come out to them. Let's see. Sci-Fi Mike said the AI overlords got you. Gunslinger said YouTube is just bad. True. Crown Royal said Rumble is still alive. Real Newsman says, yes, Rumble. Real Newsman equals Tito Edwards. Oh, that's you, Tito. Yes. Let's see. Banji says globs, not globes, meaning globalist. Whoa. Isn't that... I'm confused. Globs, not globes, meaning globalist. Am I reading that wrong? I don't know. I don't know if I'm reading that wrong or not. Crown Royal says, Francis has a backdoor to YouTube to ban people talking about the Latin Mass. So true. I've seen it. It exists. Don't fact check me. Dawn says, excellent interview with Dr. Jose Trasenkos. Let's see. Michelle said, live art shows, are they only on the web? No, like live art shows, meaning like in real life. Like she goes out to them. We had one in at the seminary in Houston, and so that's where she was before. But yeah, if you know any live art shows in the area, let me know. I would be happy to pass along information and invite my sister, and maybe I'll join her. Me, my mom, my sister will go. Let's see. Elon Musk has spoken of the negative concerns of AI. Yes, he has. And that was actually one of the stories that I brought up that I wanted to talk about, but there's not enough time to talk about everything. YouTube. Hey, people made it to YouTube. Welcome back to YouTube again. Third time's the charm, hopefully. Let's see. R. Legionis says first. Skunky X says here. Rhaegar says awesome, back on again. Eric says back up and running. Paul says there you are. Teresa said greetings. My phone service has been wonky today. It may not be your phone service. It may just be us because we've been kicked off twice today. Let's see. Alberto says hi there all. Newsman, which is Tito Edwards, says hi everyone. But there you go. I think I caught up on everybody. If you have not been called out, if I have not greeted you or said hello, let us know, and I'll be happy to say hi. Let's see. Oh, man.
We're on Odyssey, Rumble, YouTube, and Telegram.
Correct. We are all those places. And we're on Twitter, but I don't know if there's even a comment ability on Twitter. Let's see. Banji says nope. Globs for...
Glogs?
Pronounce it globes. Is it? Oh, are you trying to say... Oh, you're saying globalist, right? Is that what you're saying? Globs for globalist? You don't want to... You're trying to avoid saying globes. Is that what I'm getting? I'm sorry. Verbal jokes don't really work very well over text. Because then you're like... I don't know what how you're pronouncing it, and I'm also a little slow. So let's see. Sci-Fi Mike says I'm following you, Banji. Sci-Fi Mike says he had a typo in a previous comment with globs. I don't know. I don't get it. I is the dumb.
Oh, that's shorthand for okay. Oh, are you a Zoomer, Banji? Is that his Zoomer lingo?
I mean, I'm a Zoomer, right? I don't have no idea.
Yeah, but yeah, you haven't divulged into the culture yet.
I try to avoid the culture as much as possible.
Excellent thing you're doing there. So, what does anyone want to talk about? What would you like us to address today? We have a lot of time left, so go ahead and drop something.
Michelle Vaughn, you're very kind. She said, Adrian, you're not slow. You're brilliant and amazing. Thank you, Michelle Vaughn. I appreciate that. Very kind of you to say so. I don't know where Jesus Robles is. Usually he's pumping up my ego, so I need someone to replace him for the moment. Actually, pray for Jesus Robles. He started his new job being a sergeant. And that's why he's not joining us. And so he said his schedule was going to be very chaotic for a little while.
Good for him.
His new job. Yeah.
I mean, his new position. So he's moving on up.
Yes, sir. It's very exciting. Sci-Fi Mike says, I wonder if there are two levels of getting kicked off of YouTube. The normal just goodbye and the more subtle, here's a technical defect. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe there's a problem, but nothing else got kicked off, which is why I was asking if anybody else got kicked off elsewhere. Because I was like, okay, maybe it was a problem with Switchboard. But no, it was not a problem with Switchboard. It was a problem with YouTube, and it happened twice. I also noticed, I was watching Dr. Taylor Marshall, and that happens to him a lot too, where he's halfway through a stream, and then it just kicks him off.
A live stream?
A live stream, correct.
Okay.
But it doesn't happen to anybody else. I've never seen it happen to other people.
Well, I'm pretty certain it can't be user error on our part.
I don't think so.
No.
I don't think it's a user error.
God is perfect. He created us, so.
Well, I mean, I don't know what it could be if it's user error. I'm trying to think of a possibility, but I don't know. I don't know what it could be. It's not. I mean, like for instance, Timcast with what's his name, Tim Pool. He does like 4-hour live streams, and I've never seen him get kicked off. So what's the difference? I don't know. So let me know if you have any suggestions or if you think anything, if you have any ideas of why we might be getting kicked off. Banji says, sorry if you said it before, but where's Joe? I'm not always able to watch, even in replay, so I don't know. Yeah, so Joe has taken a position elsewhere. So he has left the show. So yeah, that's the long and short of it. Banji said, "What's a Zoomer? Do you mean going on Zoom? Maybe? No, I'm not. Is Generation Z? Yeah.
Yeah, it's supposed to be a riff off of Boomer, so just drop the Z in there. Sometimes they want to be referred to as Zoomers because they really don't want to be called Gen Z. So there you
I
have
don't know.
it.
I don't know if I like Zoomer. I don't know if I like being called a Zoomer.
I remember our generation, when we started hearing Gen X, nobody liked it at all.
What you call yourselves? Millennials, right?
No, they call us Gen X.
They just call you Gen X?
Yeah, there's no shorthand for anything.
What's a millennial?
Millennial, Gen X is X. The reasoning is X, then after X is Y, and after Y is Z. So Z are the Zoomers. Y are the millennials, unless millennials and Zoomers are the same thing. Let's take.
I thought millennials was Gen X, but I guess that's not right.
No. Yeah, okay. Gen Y are the millennials.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
R. Legioni says Gen Y is millennials.
Yep. Good one. Who said that?
R. Legionis.
R. Legioni, you are correct. Where are you seeing that on Odyssey?
YouTube. YouTube's. Yeah, I'm switching.
Oh, okay. Oh, your YouTube's quicker than mine.
Yeah, I'm just switching 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. Let's see. Great. Good morning.
Jen Flores.
Nope, I'm a boomer. Banji says, nope, I'm a boomer. Yeah, boomers are... What age range is the boomers?
Old.
Old.
And soon to be really old. What are we? 20, 23? In 2 years, they'll go from old to really old.
So you're Gen X.
Yep.
So your parents are boomers?
They're right on the cusp between the silent generation and boomers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why do they call them the silent generation?
Because I think they misnamed them the silent. No, wait. It's the greatest generation and then the boomers. And then before the greatest generation, they're called the silent generation. I believe they call them the silent generation because they didn't have radio. Their form of communication was the newspaper, so they really couldn't speak. They didn't have streaming. They didn't have television. They didn't have radio. They didn't have any electronic forms of communication. It was all mechanical.
Why do they call them the greatest generation if they created the boomers?
Thank you. I always thought that myself. They came home and thought they just rested on the laurels and didn't need how to teach and carry on their faith. Man, we lost so much with the boomers.
Yeah, people make fun of the boomers, but it's not their fault that they are the way they are.
The parents played a critical role in their raising. For the longest time, I always blamed the bishops or the schools for forming poor Catholics, but the more I learned about our faith, the more I understood it's the responsibility of the parents. Sending your child to Catholic school is not going to guarantee your children are going to remain good, faithful Catholics. You have to learn through the examples of your parents. Catholic school can augment that.
Yeah, I mean, most of my zeal came from my mother. My mother was very good about teaching the faith at home, telling us stories at night before bed, telling us stories of the Catholic faith, playing the CD of Stories of Mary in the car, things like that. And it is kind of imbibed into our very being. So, yeah, I mean, we're all Catholic still. So praise be to God. It's like, it's something not to take for granted. The fact that my entire family is pro-life, my entire family is Catholic, my entire family are not just Catholics, but traditional Catholics. We all attend the traditional Latin Mass. Even my grandparents have started going back to the traditional Latin Mass. My grandpa was telling me, he was like, yeah, I remember when the Mass was like this when I was a kid. And he said, I always thought it was weird that we had women in the altar. I always thought that was weird, and I never understood why we did that. And so he, as soon as he came to Latin Mass, he was like, yep, this is where I want to be. And so it took him one time, and he's back.
You converted your parents and your grandparents.
And my siblings.
And your siblings. So you're the one that discovered the TLM.
Yes, I discovered it in college.
At the UST Chapel, St. Basil's?
At UST Chapel, I went to my first Latin Mass at UST Chapel, I think. and it was a low mass with Father Cadet, and I had promised afterwards to never go back to a Latin mass because it was terrible, and it was so weird. There's no sound, nothing going on, and I didn't get it. And so I was like, I'm never coming back to this. It was only after I was discerning the priesthood and Father Felix at Annunciation had forced me to serve the Latin Mass at Annunciation because he was like, do you know how to serve Mass? And I was like, no, I've never served Mass before.
Nice.
And so he was like, okay, well, come and serve Mass. And I showed up, and it was Latin Mass that he had told me to come to. And I was like, oh, darn it. I didn't want to come to this. And I kind of just started going, and I kind of just started getting it. I kept on, this is a short version of the story, but I started getting it. And after I realized there's something beautiful here, I started researching on Latin Mass, started reading extensively on it. So I read several books on it. The first one I read was the Nothing Superfluous by Father Jackson. Excellent book. Excellent book. I cannot recommend highly enough. As the first book I read on the Latin Mass, and and from there I just kept on devouring everything I could, and then I fell in love with it. And so my family started going. My little sister loves Latin Mass because she's deaf. She says the Novus Ordo is terrible because she can't participate. She can't say the words she can't sing the songs. She can't participate in the call and response. All these things that are made to facilitate community, made to facilitate inclusivity, to get the laity involved. All these things are completely alienating to people like my sister. And so she loves Latin Mass because she can do whatever she wants. She can pray the rosary during Mass if she wants. No big deal. Nobody cares. She can read her because people all the time you'll hear people like, you shouldn't pray the rosary at Mass, or they'll say the reason why we needed the Novus Ordo was because these people were praying the rosary during Mass. Can you believe it?
Those were the few exceptions where people were not participating because they did not know how to participate. What your sister is doing is actually what the Latin written in English was intended to do. Active participation means following the Mass mentally, not verbally. And so that's what happened. The narrative was hijacked after the conclusion of Vatican II, and immediately they started implementing all these things, having girl altar servers, having the responses, removing the lectors and the duties of the men to go up there and read the Gospels and the epistles. Many things went wrong. It wasn't necessarily that Vatican II was wrong. It was just never implemented correctly. And if you're never going to implement it, then you know what? Why don't we just go back to what it was before? If the bishops, the people in charge, the ones in authority are not going to implement it correctly, do it on their own whims, then there is precedent for ignoring previous teachings. And I understand it's going to take decades or maybe a century or two, but we live in an age where communication would have taken about a month to go from Rome to England. Now it's instantaneous.
Right.
In Vatican II, that happened, I know, before the dawn of satellite TV, but my goodness, the information was disseminated quickly and intentionally, and it wasn't followed. It wasn't followed.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, here's my thing. When people say things like that, I get it. I understand what the people are saying. Like, for instance, Sharon said, Father Chris Alar says it was a bad implementation of Vatican II. And my thing is, okay, sure, I understand what people are saying when they say that. But what's the good implementation of Vatican II? Like, how is it that every single bishop, because you realize all these bishops were at the council. All these bishops, every single bishop in the world. It was the most attended council ever in the history of the church. More bishops showed up to this council than any other council ever. And they go back to their home diocese. And it's not like these bishops were people who were sent information later. They were there at the council. And how is it that every single place in the entire world all did the exact same thing? All had these major declines, major errors, major problems all over the world. That's what I don't get.
There are some exceptions, like the Diocese of Lincoln, where they implemented it correctly, and they're just an island of prosperity, of vocations.
And that is a great point, bringing up the fact that you're like, well, here's an exception.
Yes, I know.
It's
an
like,
exception.
how many dioceses are there in the U.S.? And it's like, well, there's Lincoln, Nebraska.
There, when John Paul II took the throne of Peter, the seat of Peter, and started traveling around the world, I can't confirm this, but I think he implemented it correctly in his diocese, because when he visited the United States, he was flabbergasted to what he was viewing. But I'm not sure why he never made those comments public. He commented that it was not done properly. In Poland, they did it properly, and so they have a flourishing faith. But I'm sure there are other factors involved too. When the communist government takes everything from you, but they allow the church, you can grasp the church. But yes, I don't know how long it's going to take. Is it going to be our children, our grandchildren are going to benefit from the fruits of Vatican II? Because it is so difficult to find a good parish.
There still has yet to be a canonized saint who only had the Novus Ordo Mass. John Paul II was baptized, confirmed, ordained, made a bishop, all in the traditional form. Mother Teresa grew up with the traditional Mass. It wasn't until she was already well into her life when the Novus Ordo came in. All the modern saints, there has yet to be one who's exclusively gone to the Novus Ordo.
Blessed Carlo Acutis.
Not a saint yet.
I know, he's not a saint yet. I know.
So, as of now, none yet.
I think when it was implemented, Saint Jose Maria Escriva had permission to continue.
Yeah, because he was old.
Yes, and the same with Padre Pio.
Yes, Padre Pio. There's a great book, The Last Mass of Padre Pio.
Mm-hmm.
Highly recommend. Let's see. So yeah, I mean it's kind of a big deal. Sci-Fi or Count Royal said, we started to go to the Latin Mass last summer when the Chicago Archbishop took that church away from Latin parish. I had to know what it was all about. It was awesome, reminding me of my first communion. The Archdiocese of Cincinnati is now combining parishes after years of combining the schools. It's a hot mess. Luckily, we belong to the second largest grade school. Praise be to God, Crown Royal. And let me know about your experience. I'm curious to hear your experience at the Latin Mass. I think it'll be a cool experiment for a lot of people. If maybe for Lent this year, if you're like, I don't really want to go to Latin Mass, well, offer it up as a sacrifice. Go to Latin Mass for Lent. Exclusively attend Latin Mass for all of Lent and see how that affects you. See, maybe you hate it. And maybe you'll be like, okay, that was the most suffering Lent ever. I'm never doing that again. Or maybe you'll be like, wow, that was enlightening and I have been reinvigorated in my faith. Who knows? Report back to me and let me know what your experience was like. And I'd be very curious. Michelle Vaughn says, it was a transition because you had many priests that were trained pre-Vatican II. Yeah. There's many priests who were trained pre-Vatican II. Yeah, that's the thing. A lot of these errors didn't begin at Vatican II. Vatican II is more of a culmination because all these errors were existing for 100 years before. I mean, Pius X, Pius XII, Pius IX, Leo XIII were all writing about errors that were within the church. Garrigou-Lagrange, his famous book on the question of nouveau théologie, the new theology, the errors of the new theology, and all these things were happening. All were happening before the council. So yeah, the council is not the problem. It is a result of the problem.
On your point of attending a TLM for Lent, I think another good idea would be maybe try daily Mass. I mean, not necessarily all in Latin, but go to daily Mass or put in an hour of adoration a week. And if you already put an hour of adoration a week, try daily. Those things are efficacious. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Don Paddock says, Adrian, with your vast education, have you considered the diaconate? I don't have a vast education, but have I considered the diaconate? No. I think I'm not a huge fan of permanent deacons. I think permanent diaconate, and also the term permanent diaconate is strange too, because you're always a permanent deacon. So if you're a priest, you're still a deacon. If you're a bishop, you're still a deacon. Which is why the Episcopal garb, what a bishop wears, has elements of the bishops, of the priest garments, and the deacon's garments, because he's showing that he is the full.
That's right. He's got a double bar.
Right, exactly. So he shows a full authority, and so that you're always a deacon. Which is why if you're doing a solemn high mass, which don't really exist anymore in the Novus Ordo, but if you ever go to a Latin mass, you see a high mass, a solemn high mass rather, with 3 priests. Usually, the person acting as a deacon and subdeacon are also priest, because they retain the orders that are below them, subdiaconate and diaconate. And so they can act in those roles, even though they're not deacons and subdeacons anymore, they're priests, because you're still a priest and subdeacon when you're ordained. So that's kind of that. In terms of like why I wouldn't do it, I don't know, man. I think the permanent diaconate has been a negative on the church, not because we have the permanent deacons are bad people or anything like that, but because I think it steals vocations. I think a lot of people end up becoming permanent deacons because they were told, like for instance, whenever I told people I was discerning the priesthood, I'd get very often, oh, why don't you just get married and become a deacon?
Wow.
Tons of people would say that. They don't, it's kind of, I think permanent diaconate has watered down the role of the priesthood and the sanctity of chastity and virginity. So that's my hot take for the day. Permanent deacons. I have nothing against people who are permanent deacons. I know many very good people who are permanent deacons. So nothing against those people. This is just my ideas about it in general. Maybe we'll talk about it more tomorrow if y'all want to bring it up tomorrow and we talk about it tomorrow. Without further ado, God bless you guys. I'll see y'all tomorrow. God bless you. God love you. Hopefully we don't have issues with YouTube tomorrow, but who knows. See you guys. God bless you. God love you. Enjoy the rest of your day. We'll see you bright and early tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. Central, 7 Eastern, across the GRN. And make sure you get on our email list so you can join us on the Telegram chat. So see you then.
Thank you for joining us on Your Catholic Drive Time, where it is our pleasure to keep you informed and inspired.
Join us Monday through Friday at the same time, right here on your favorite Catholic radio station.
Don't forget to connect with us. Just go to facebook.com/Catholic Drive Time.
Again, that's facebook.com/Catholic Drive Time.
Be sure to share more than just us today. Share Jesus with everyone you meet.
Bye now, and God love you.